Today we're going to look at finding the surface area of rectangular prisms. This also includes your cubes. We'll see how this compares to volume. It's just a little bit different, but we should be able to handle it. Okay, so when working with your shapes, remember all 3D shapes can be unfolded. And so if you think of like a cardboard box, when it's unfolded, you lay it flat on the ground. You can still see the different sides, how they're the same length. But when it's made into a 2D shape and laid out flat, it is called a net. So this is an example of one, what it would look like. You'll see that each rectangle, each face is what the video is calling it, has another face that is exactly the same size. We'll use more of that in just a moment. But you can fold all of this up to make your rectangular prism unfolded. This is what it would look like if you were to lay it flat on the ground. And so we have a formula to find the surface area. That is what the SA stands for, surface area. When we get to the triangular prisms, we will not have a formula, and you'll see why when we get to it. But as long as we have formulas, it makes these problems a lot easier. However, you got to think of all the shapes that you have. You need to make sure that each shape is using the correct formula. Some of you have gotten those mixed up, and it is costing you points. So make sure that you are using the correct formula for the correct directions and for the correct shape. So looking at your formula, you have the surface area equals 2 times a parentheses, and inside your parentheses you have your length times your width, you have your length times your height, and then you have your width times your height. So in short, you're taking each measurement, multiplying it by the other measurement, and then adding it. And we are multiplying by 2. It's because you have 2 of every shape. So if you were to look at this rectangle here is going to be the exact same size of this rectangle. You have this one here. When it folds over and connects, it is going to be the same size of this one. And then your last two here in the middle, and then this one, that would be like the bottom and the top. Those are the same size. So what you're really doing is you're going to find the area of each rectangle, and then you're going to add it together. And so when I find the area of this one, let me color it in instead. When I find the area of this rectangle, I don't need to find the area of this rectangle because it's going to be the same. So as soon as I find it one time, in the end, I'm just going to double it. So if that was my length times the width, let's just call it that. And then we had our length times the height connected to this one. And you'll notice, since these two are the same, once I get the area of this one, all I need to do is double it, and I will have what I need for that. And then you have the width and the height, which is right here. Whenever I find the measurements for that, it's the same measurement for that one. So when you get just one of each of those, you can combine it all together. You're going to add it all together, and then because you have 2 of each shape, you can just double it, and that will give you your answer. That's the quickest way to work this. Some kids prefer to do 2 times the length times the width plus 2 times the length times the height plus 2 times the width times the height. You can do the formula this way. However, your numbers do get bigger from the beginning, so it is a lot easier to just do the area of one of each rectangle and then just double it all together at the end just one time, and that's a lot easier to work these. So here's an example of one of our problems we'll be doing. This one's a little easier because it gives you the three numbers. Remember, some of your problems will give you a lot of numbers. You got to make sure not to repeat numbers, but just one number that represents the length, the width, and the height. And so it doesn't matter what you pick for each one, just make sure you don't use the same number for a different measurement. But because it only gives you three numbers, you're going to use all three. So it doesn't matter which number you use for what, just make sure you don't get it mixed up. So my surface area is going to equal 2 times, and we're going to have some measurements in between. Okay, so what you need to do is just choose a number and then know what it represents. I'm going to take 10. This is going to be my length. I can make it my height, I can make it my width, that's perfectly fine. But just know what you choose it for. That's a cursive L, by the way. I don't want to get that mixed up with the number 1. So I'm choosing 10 to be length. So I'm going to go to my formula, and everywhere I see that L, I'm going to put the number 10. So I'm going to have a 10 right here, plus, and then I have another L. I'm going to put the 10 right there. So now I need to pick a number for my width. I'm just going to go down the row here. So I'm going to use this for my width. So this is length times the width, so I need to put a 5 here. So this is 10 times 5. And then I have a W here at the end. So I'm going to have 5 times the height for that one. And so next, I'm going to use the 2. And this 2 is going to represent the height. So I have the H, that's going to be 10 times 2. And then I have 5 times 2. One thing you will notice in these problems, it is a lot of writing out, and so you want to make sure you have plenty of space to work this so you don't get your numbers mixed up. So here's my formula. The red represents the length. If you want to use a different number, that's perfectly fine because it will not change the final answer. I used the 5 for the W, that's the width, so you can see how that's lined up. And then the 2 represents the height. So now I'm just going to do a normal basic problem. I have parentheses. I'm going to do everything inside the parentheses. I have multiplication and addition. So I'm going to multiply first. So this problem becomes 2 inside my parentheses. I have 10 times 5. Let me circle that. 10 times 5 is 50. Plus, there's my plus sign. I have 10 times 2. That's 20. Then I have another plus sign. And I have 5 times 2. That is 10. So now I just need to add that up. 50 plus 20 plus 10. When we do that, that equals 80. 50 plus 20 is 70 plus 2. Excuse me, 50 plus 20 is 70 plus 10. Makes you 80. And I still have that in parentheses with the 2 on the outside, which is multiplication. So 2 times 80 is 160. Now the directions are surface area. Surface area, like all area, will be squared. The reasons for that, you only multiplied, if you look at your formula, you only multiplied 2 measurements together. If you would have multiplied 3, we would have cubed it, but because you're only multiplying at a time 2 measurements, it is going to stay as an area. So your final answer is 160 centimeters squared. So what that means is if I was to unfold this into all the rectangles, the area of each rectangle added together would make 160. I'd encourage you to pause the video, try this one on your own, and then check to see how you did. These just take practice. Once you get it down, this one should be fairly simple to do. Okay, so your formula you have is 2, then you have the length times the width, plus the length times the height, plus the width times the height. Once again, you only have your 3 numbers, so you just need to pick and choose which numbers you want to use. Real quick though, because your assignment's not going to give you just 3 numbers, you're going to have 4 on this side. It might tell you this side here is 5 and this side is 8. Once again, you got to make sure, just like finding the volume, you need to choose one rectangle and take those 2 measurements, and then the third measurement has to be a measurement that is not a part of that rectangle. You can see that this 4 and this 4 are the same, and opposite sides are the same. So this is 8, opposite side is 8. So you can see that you wouldn't want to use this 4 again, and you would not want to use that 8 again. So just keep that in mind. With 3 numbers, it's easy, but we just want to make sure that we are not mixing it up when we have more numbers. And you'll see more numbers on your assignment. I wasn't able to get that for these. Okay, so I'm just going to start from left to right. I'm going to use 5. I'm going to use 5 to represent my length. And if you see the quick way of doing this, once you have your 3 numbers, you're just multiplying each measurement by the other measurement, add it together. So I'm going to do 5 for my length. I have 4, I'm going to use the 4 for the W, so this is 5 times 4. Poorly drawn 4. And then you have a W over here, which is going to be 4 as well. And then you have 8 for the height, so this is going to be 5 times 8. And then your width times your height. So this is what you got. 5 times 4 equals 20. 5 times 8 is 40. 4 times 8 is 32. And all of this will need to be multiplied by 2 because we have 2 of every side that is the same length. So if I was to add this together, 20 plus 40 is 60. 60 plus 32 is 92. So my problem now becomes 2 times 92. You parentheses that, and when numbers touch the parentheses, means multiplication. So these problems look long and they can get long, but if you do know your multiplication facts fairly well, you are able to work these a little quicker. So I'm going to stack this just to check my work. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 9 is 18. So that's my final answer. It's 184. Because this is surface area, it is going to be squared. So 184 centimeters squared. This is one last problem, and then we'll be done with this. Once again, these practice problems don't have all the extra numbers, but you will be seeing that on your assignment. So once again, to find your length, width, and height, just like when you were doing volume, you pick 2 numbers from the rectangle, and then you must find the number that is coming off of it. That tells you how deep or how the height, how far back it goes. And so those will be the 3 numbers you use. Okay, so if I just think of that net being unfolded, I'm going to have 2 of every one. And then I'm going to have the length times the width times the height, and the length times the height. It does not matter the order you put it in. If you want to start with the width times the height plus the width times the length. That's perfectly fine, as long as each measurement is multiplied by the other measurement. So in short, I'm going to have, if I wasn't using my formula, I just wanted to multiply each number by the other number. And I'm going to double it, but I could say I have 2 times 4 plus 2 times 3 plus 4 times 3. I'm running out of space here. 4 times 3. And so you can match those up, or you could just understand you're taking each measurement and multiplying it by the other two. So I'm going to do 2 times 4, I'm going to do 2 times 3, and then I'm going to do the 3 times 4, and then you're set because you can see each number has been multiplied by the other two numbers. So 2 times 4, that equals 8. 2 times 3, that equals 6. 4 times 3, that equals 12. We're going to add that together, and then we're going to multiply it by 2 because we have 2 of each rectangle. 8 plus 12 is 20, plus 6, that is 26. So I have 26 times 2. And this problem is going to equal 52, and we don't have no measurements on it, so I'm just going to call it units. 52 units squared, and that's what it is. So hopefully this helps. When we do the Zoom call on Tuesday, we'll go over all of this in detail. I'd recommend waiting for that time, but if you want to get a head start just to try a few problems, then you can check and see your progress. And if you have it right when we start the meeting, you should be able to get this done with a good grade and get it done quickly. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope to see you on the Zoom call.